Hi, Erin. Welcome. It's great to have you here with us for our CONECTAA talks. Generating revenue is an enabler for associations to develop and also continue to offer their products and services that are of value to their members and their community at large. The pandemic has definitely further accentuated this. So, in Brazil and in Latin America in general, associations often look at US based international associations to learn from best practices and benchmarks. So, how would you characterize the association market right now in terms of offering opportunities to generate revenue?
Thanks, Gina. It is a really interesting time for associations. And I think that the biggest impact on the market right now is the fact that we have the ability to truly engage association members and sponsors and customers on a year-round basis and not be kind of trapped within the construct of always driving everything towards the annual meeting. And as a result, we're also seeing really increased engagement across the board due to digital delivery. Some of that was due to some price breaks that a lot of organizations gave during the outset of the pandemic in 2020. So I believe that we will need to have some data from 2021 to really see now that people, I think, are charging more akin to market rates for participation in virtual conferences, et cetera. I think that we will need to see that information. But I can tell you anecdotally from the US and the 50 associations that we manage, we are definitely seeing the consistent increase in overall engagement and attendance, not just at a hybrid or virtually delivered conference, but also in all of the opportunities ranging from governance opportunities, committee meetings, to special interest groups, to webinars and that kind of thing. I think that in terms of the market, we see a lot of members really hungry for what we usually call soft skills. So when you have an organization of scientists, for instance, or attorneys who all of a sudden have to thrive and succeed and either win business or win research grants in a digital environment, they may be incredibly well informed and educated in their profession and field, but the communication skills and their shift to a digital mindset is something that we really see some opportunities for associations to resell existing classes. We also have seen an uptake in interest in business or practice management issues now that a lot of organizations, medical practices, legal practices, other professional services firms have really recalibrated how they operate and run. A lot of trade organizations and professional societies, I think, are enhancing their business education, their practice management, their human resources skills training to really great success. And I think that since the beginning of my career, which is now nearly 30 years ago, we've been predicting this shift, right? We knew that the original kind of value that associations offered was in the proprietary ownership of research or information about the industry or profession. And then once the internet came and democratized the access to that information, associations really leaned in on networking and connection as the key value proposition. And now we're finally at this place we've been talking about for a while, which is really people aligning and finding affinity with organizations based on their knowledge creation, their content creation, and the ability to connect with like-minded people regardless of where they are geographically. And I think that that leads me into kind of my final thought there, which is associations traditionally have still had a very geographic focus. I know as you look at organizations in the United States and North America, they've been very kind of isolated or insular. Now that we've had so much opportunity to level and flatten that field where we now can accommodate global engagement, global speakers, and the participation has really gone up, we're now seeing more interest from those global members in participating in the decision-making process for those organizations in terms of running for seats on the board and leading committees and helping to inform and enhance that knowledge curation I mentioned previously. And so I think that all of those things really mean a much more exciting, engaged membership and a much more democratic approach to how associations reach out and pull in members.
Thank you, Erin. Whilst generating revenue and being entrepreneurial is a need for the long-term sustainability of associations, are there any entrepreneurial opportunities that you see associations tend to avoid because they consider themselves not-for-profit organizations?
Absolutely. You nailed it. I always say that not-for-profit is a tax status in the United States and certainly not part of anybody's mission statement. And there are definitely organizations, it's been an exciting, frothy market for a lot of different opportunities. And we've definitely seen some of our association client partners lean in and I think really create some exciting opportunities by being, as you said, entrepreneurial. One example is that we worked with a very large global organization that acquired another organization that kind of focused on a segment of their membership and during COVID was basically not able to succeed. And they didn't want to own the organization for the brand name or any of kind of what you would assume would be a typical acquisition. Instead, they really wanted parts of that organization's IP around some of their credentialing work, some of their standards work, some of their content and knowledge. And I think that an organization leaning in on that side versus making just an acquisition to get their database is something that's really interesting and really speaks to what I had said previously. Another organization that we work with is acquiring a small professional services firm that has always delivered a product to their membership. The owner of that company is looking at an exit strategy and certainly has talked to other for-profit partners, but feels a lot of affinity and allegiance to this organization that's helped him grow his business over the term. And this business produces a very specific product and has a technology solution that would benefit all of the organization's membership. And so they're looking at integrating potentially the staff and bringing on kind of that product line and that technology solution into the organization. And then I think that throughout association history, at least recent history, you have seen a lot of firms create for-profit arms, and those for-profit arms of an association can allow an organization, for instance, to run an insurance product that's targeted towards members in the industry, or run some type of survey or business assessment practice that would need to be proprietary and not publicly available, and therefore needs to be kind of protected in that way. But I think that, overall, when we work with associations and they ask, how can we be more entrepreneurial so that we can be more informed in how we drive revenue, there needs to be a real movement and focus on tracking product profit margin and really correctly allocating the staff and overhead costs to each product, service, initiative, event, what have you. I don't think most associations do that very well. And therefore, there tends to be an assumption of, oh, okay, direct costs were less than revenue, and so it's profitable. And we all know that the staff time and the expertise, especially in a digital environment where that staff time is more and more expensive, there's a real cost there that I think always needs to be kind of factored in by an organization's leadership to make informed decisions.
Thank you, Erin. You gave some very interesting and very diverse examples there of organizations and what they have been doing. Are those mainly large organizations, or have you also seen smaller organizations being able to do such kind of movements?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I think that's what's exciting. In some ways, smaller organizations, I think, are more nimble. And in this digital environment, what is small and what is large, right? Whoever has, I think, the most content, the most engagement, can ideally win. But one of the examples I gave, the organization that's buying a small for-profit entity, is actually an organization that's, I think, a $4 to $5 million operating budget, which in the U.S. market is not considered a large organization. So there's definitely, I think, opportunities. And again, it has to have the right leadership. You have to have really strong alignment between an entrepreneurial staff and a board that is comfortable taking informed risk. And I think that's where you're able to kind of move some of those initiatives forward.
I know it's not the focus of today, but you touched on an element that is quite crucial for the success of an organization, the governance and the partnership between the boards and the staff. Can you maybe touch on that a little bit more, on what you see as being successful in this sense in the US? Because this is quite a challenge in Brazil and in Latin America.
Sure. Well, I had mentioned before too that just kind of the larger engagement overall, and then I think greater opportunities for engagement outside typical areas of geographic focus or market have led to more interest from people outside of North America in running for positions on boards. Again, that's anecdotal, but I think it's definitely something that I've seen across organizations. As a result, organizations are also revisiting their governance structures. So we actually worked with a group right really from the beginning of the pandemic, a global organization that decided to really institutionalize global representation. So they went ahead and put in a seat for Latin America. They put in a seat for various areas of Europe and other kind of key market focus for them, which I think was a great move and really important to be truly representative of a global industry. And they had been talking about this for years, but all of a sudden seeing these folks being able to show up and participate in exactly the same way and level as everybody else around the virtual table, I think really helped move that forward.
Taking that back to national organizations here or regional, I'm thinking they could replicate that also, not only looking at geography, but also at the different industry sectors that they represent, or the different elements of the different ages, right? To get that attraction and also drive revenue through products for those specific target audiences, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And to finish off, Erin, final question: how are you seeing associations take advantage of the disruption of the last year?
Sure. I think when we think, there's always a silver lining, and in the United States, a lot of organizations do what we call fly-ins or hill days, where you bring a large number of members to Washington, D.C., or to state capitals, depending on kind of the issue, to visit with members of Congress and their staff to advocate. And as someone who's organized a lot of these, it's challenging, right? You're dealing with scheduling. You're literally herding the cats through the halls of the Capitol building, trying to keep everybody on time. These members of Congress are obviously very busy. There's photo ops. There's all of these things to coordinate in addition to the actual conversation. And so it can be a lot, and it can be intimidating to a lot of members to have that experience. So a lot of groups have during COVID, we've had no choice but to move to virtual advocacy. We have seen interest in these advocacy experiences triple and more, 6x of what we used to see. And so it's really truly democratized a democratic process in terms of getting the right folks in the conversation. It's very easy to then get the member to come in where they can be wherever. They can be walking in the Capitol with their phone and coming into the conversation. So there's a higher tendency to get the actual member to participate versus a senior staff member. So it's, I think, a more rewarding experience for everybody who participates. So, and based on the security issues that are increasing in the US of accessing these buildings, as well as kind of uncertainty around COVID, we believe that model is probably going to stay around. I think that we're going to see most groups switch to this permanently. I think that, other kind of areas of advantage are, there's just far more regular social opportunities with each group beyond the face-to-face conference. Very few associations were doing regular virtual happy hours or coffee breaks, et cetera, prior to COVID. I think that kind of engagement is absolutely going to stay around. And I think that, as I mentioned, the other piece is, if you've got a lot more people participating and you have a lot more people from different parts of the market, you have very new opportunities to put in front of sponsors. You used to be able to only reach people in this geographic region, and now we're able to give you opportunities to truly engage and expand your brand on a global basis. And I think that those kind of arrangements and contracts that I'm sure Carrie will speak more to are something that's very interesting. And it's great to see associations in general move away from kind of the two cash cows, right? Membership, which has been a little unstable based on profession or industry due to who was impacted by COVID, as well as event generated revenue in terms of attendance, and really lean in more on product development and productizing their content. And I think as a result, that disruption is what will really change the nature of the work we do or how we prioritize the work within associations.
Erin, thank you so much for these 10 minutes packed of insights and refreshing ideas.
Thank you. It's great to be here.